Hey y'all, and welcome back to another Prime episode of Flick Connection, where today we're talking about some of the most messed up movies currently included with your Prime Video membership.
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. I'm in.
Now, while this list does include some pretty intense movies that are going to be a little too much for some of you watching, not everything is stomach-turning. Some of the movies are actually pretty mild with a majorly twisted main storyline. Movies like Otherlife. We've got some dark and twisted movies like Eden Lake, some irreverent and crude comedies, and of course, some sexually explicit movies as well. Thanks to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video, but my bottom pick on this list, my number 20 pick, is Level 16. Now this is kind of a bizarre, psychological, almost science fiction style thriller. You follow a group of young girls held captive in some sort of facility. At first glance, it seems like some sort of reform school, but you watch a little bit longer, you realize it's much more akin to a prison. But it's very unclear as to what's actually going on, and that's the mystery in Level 16. Because the main characters, the young girls here, don't exactly know either, but they do know more than you do. And so half the fun of this movie is just trying to figure out what's actually going on, but ultimately what you end up with is a pretty interesting little psychological thriller. Almost in a very similar vein, and probably a movie with a very similar budget size, is 1BR, or Apartment 1BR. It stands for one bedroom, so the title Apartment 1BR doesn't make a ton of sense, but in this movie, you follow one young woman who's getting maybe her first place to live on her own. She rents this one small bedroom apartment, but shortly after moving in, she realizes there's something up with the other tenants in this apartment building. They've got something in common with each other. There seems to be something going on between them, and she feels very out of place, and it's a bizarre setting. And then after all of that setup, this movie takes a wild turn. Now this too is a pretty small thriller, but it's an effective one. And just like my recommendation with Level 16, the less you know about 1BR, the better. So we'll actually move on to my next pick, which is a zombie comedy. Not the only zombie comedy on this list, but this one is Life After Beth.
You don't want to eat me, do you?
Not right now.
No, I mean like really eat me.
Not when my parents are around.
Okay, it's not fun. It's weird. End of kiss, guys.
In this movie, Aubrey Plaza plays a zombie, but she's actually the girlfriend of the main character, and when she dies, she comes back to life. And at first, the young man seems to be kind of happy that his girl is back from the dead, but you know, he realizes she's not the same, is one way to put it. Now, I enjoyed a lot of things about this movie, but at the same time, I'm a fan of Aubrey Plaza and really the rest of the cast. And I do recommend this for interested viewers, but ultimately, I don't feel like this movie really went anywhere, and I don't even think that's my opinion. I think it literally does not go anywhere, certainly nowhere significant, and it certainly doesn't go anywhere that's worth the watch time, but if you're interested in the concept enough, it's got enough going for it that if you don't mind kind of a flubbed ending, go after Life After Beth. Now, I did not plan for my other zombie comedy to be next on the list. It's just the way things shook out with my rankings, but let's go ahead and get it over with. Zombeavers.
You girls from out of town?
We're staying over there at my cousin's place. We were looking for beavers.
Well, hell, ain't we all?
Now with Zombeavers, you get almost exactly what you might expect. You get zombie beavers. Obviously, you know, you get some practical effects, some blood, a lot of boobs. There's just like a gratuitous amount of boobs in this movie. Not necessarily in an effort to save the movie so much as an effort to, you know, show gratuitous nudity in a silly horror movie like this. It's kind of funny that they overdo it, honestly, and it's funny that they overdo everything. They overdo the blood, the kills, all of that stuff's overdone, and it's pretty funny and charming to watch if you're into horror comedies. If that's not really your thing, Zombeavers is not going to be the one to kind of endear you to that genre. But we've got another thriller with some big names. This one can be a little bit stomach-turning, so beware when you watch Derailed. But this is actually a pretty killer thriller starring Clive Owen. He meets a woman on a train, played by Jennifer Aniston. They get up to some funny business, so the movie's got a little bit of a sexy edge to it, but it also features some sexual assault, so it can be upsetting. But like I said, you get kind of a Hitchcockian style thriller with this movie. It's not quite as dialed in as Hitchcock's masterpieces, but it's a very similar type of movie. So if you like twists and turns and not knowing knowing what's coming next, and you don't mind some of the more graphic elements in a movie like this, then this is a decent thriller that just kind of went by the wayside over the years, but I think is still worth watching today. So I love this movie theater setup. I watch a ton of movies in here, but my second favorite place in the house to watch movies is actually lying in bed, and I want to thank today's sponsor, Helix Sleep, for sending me the best mattress I've ever owned. Helix Sleep has premium mattresses that are customized to your needs, and they're shipped directly to your home, which is great. If you've ever actually been to a mattress store, you know how it goes. You lay down on all the mattresses and they all feel relatively the same. It's practically impossible to tell the difference, and then they definitely feel different when you get them home and start sleeping on them. Which is why getting one delivered for a trial period is such a good idea. Helix will let you actually sleep on this mattress for up to 100 nights, and their sleep quiz actually pairs you with the perfect mattress right out of the gate. It's based on your body type and your sleep preferences. They deliver it straight to your door with free shipping in the US, and it comes rolled up in a box. It's super easy to set up. I was laying on mine within about 10 minutes. And the quiz my wife and I filled out paired us up with the Helix Midnight, which again, I am loving, mainly because it solves one of the bigger problems I've had with mattresses my entire life. I like a soft feeling mattress, but a soft, saggy mattress is gonna give you back problems. You need that support, and up until now, a supportive mattress has felt pretty flat and hard for me, but not the Helix Midnight. You crawl in and it feels soft and cushy, but it's actually firmest in the middle of the mattress, which is perfect for side sleeping. It's kind of the best of both worlds for me, and for a limited time, when my viewers visit helixsleep.com/flickconnection or just go to this QR code, you're gonna save 20% off your Helix mattress, plus 2 of these dream pillows, which are like as soft and luxurious as they look. Helix mattresses also come with a 10-year warranty. They have financing options and flexible payment plans available. Again, to get 20% off plus those 2 free dream pillows, go to the QR code or this link. It's a great deal on a product I literally love every single night. But speaking of things I love, let's get back to the movies. Now, my next pick is not the last comedy on the list, but it's getting there. We've only got a couple left. The rest of the movies can be pretty intense, but Sex Drive is just kind of a charming teen sex road comedy.
The big Mexican won't go down! Take the shot!
Now yes, teen sex comedies is a genre. Think movies like American Pie and Superbad, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean, there's ones for every generation, and Sex Drive is a forgotten one, but a pretty decent one. It's filled with a lot of laughs. And yes, kind of a Fairly Brothers type of a setup. It feels a little bit like There's Something About Mary, which was also kind of a road movie, parts of it were. So if that's your sense of humor and you've somehow missed Sex Drive, it's a fun watch, but you know, it's not life-changing by any stretch of the imagination. Same goes for my next pick. Like one of the best movies about motorcycle gangs ever made, or at least one of the most like cult classic movies about motorcycle gangs ever made. Hell Ride.
In their town, there is no law to follow.
Partners in crime, right?
Only a code to live by.
To the 3 Bs. Bikes, beer, and booty.
Now this was co-produced by Quentin Tarantino, and he did that back at the same time he was producing those Grindhouse movies, back when Machete was coming out, all of that stuff, and Hell Ride was kind of in the mix. Now, for people who want to watch like top quality filmmaking, you know, this is not going to be the movie for you. This is a B-level kind of down and dirty movie that's got a lot of loose ends, but it's just so enjoyable to watch, especially for Grindhouse movie lovers. Larry Bishop actually wrote, directed, and stars in the movie. And the movie's kind of insanely graphic in just about every department you could imagine, but again, this is not a well-reviewed movie. Like, it has a 5 rating on IMDb. Again though, if you're in that Grindhouse vibe, Hell Ride nails it. It's just something that's not for everyone. Now, if you go back and watch the movie Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer, not only does it seem dated, but it doesn't seem nearly as like hard or badass as it did back when that movie originally came out. It's kind of a soft movie, but a movie kind of about a similar subject that is way harder and more visceral is actually a Samuel L. Jackson classic, 187. Now, in this movie, he plays a teacher who was stabbed 9 9 times by a student in New York City. He then moves to LA and becomes a substitute teacher, where he becomes to be victimized again. A very young Clifton Collins Jr. is his counterpart in this movie, and they have some intense scenes together. Now, just like Dangerous Minds, this movie does feel dated. It's very much a product of the 90s, but story-wise, I think this holds up much better. The movie even has a bit in common with the classic movie The Deer Hunter. They, in fact, watch The Deer Hunter in the movie and decide to reenact part of it, and it's as intense as you might imagine. So that's where this one is headed. Just know what you're getting into, but it's a dynamite performance from Samuel L. Jackson, and an early one at that. Okay, weirdest movie on this list, weirdest movie I've seen in the past year, probably past couple of years, has got to go to Beau is Afraid. This is currently the latest film from director Ari Aster, who's famous for Midsommar and Hereditary, but this is a dark comedy. And I'll say it's dark in all caps and comedy and lowercase. It leans real heavy on dark subject matter, and it's gonna be difficult for a lot of you to laugh during this movie. It was for me, even though I did understand where some of the comedy was coming from, but overall, this is a very ugly, disturbing, and beyond off-putting movie. It's also hella confusing. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Some of the stuff will make sense on reflection, but at the time, some of the stuff they're showing you in this movie is so shocking in so many different ways, it's difficult to wrap your head around the metaphorical significance of it in the moment. So, the experience of watching Beau is Afraid is a wild one. Now, it's one I recommend for avid movie watchers, especially if you're always looking for something new or an art film that you've never seen that has a flavor you've never experienced. Definitely watch Beau is Afraid. But if you're often turned off by the strangeness in movies, that's all you're gonna get with Beau is Afraid, is things that are too strange to handle. That's actually a pretty decent explanation of that movie. Okay, we got another fairly mild one about a kind of wild true story. It's titled Murder in the First, and it stars Kevin Bacon and Christian Slater, and it's a prison/courtroom drama that's pretty excellent. I would say big fans of The Shawshank Redemption. This is a fantastic movie. I think you'll like it a lot. In fact, I think I like the execution of this movie more than Sleepers, a movie that has a lot in common with this one story-wise. Kevin Bacon plays an inmate who is sentenced to an insanely long time in solitary confinement. So long, in fact, that it completely changes him, breaks his brain, and upon exiting solitary confinement, he murders the man responsible for putting him there with a spoon, mind you. Now, this is just how the movie starts. This is kind of the beginning of the story, and like I said, you end up with a solid courtroom drama. Now, I recommend courtroom dramas on the show all the time, movies like The Rainmaker, but this is one that I don't know that I've ever recommended on the show before because I've never seen it available on streaming, but again, as far as courtroom dramas go, it's excellent. Now, my next one's got a upsetting, heartbreaking, and disturbing setup, but the movie itself is pretty mild until you get to the final act, and then things get wild and Let Him Go.
We came to see our grandson.
My boy doesn't have to answer to you.
And we don't have to answer to you.
Whoa.
Now, Kevin Costner fans, this is a must-watch. If you somehow missed it, it's because they didn't market it very much. It's a fairly small movie, but it's pretty killer, especially for patient viewers. Now, the setup here is that he and Diane Lane play grandparents, and when their son tragically dies, again, that is literally the first opening moments of the movie. But after his death, their daughter-in-law decides to remarry, but she's marrying into an awful family run by horrendous people, and they decide they've got to get their grandson away from these people. But Leslie Manville plays the matriarch of this other family, and her performance kind of not only steals the show, but it makes the movie. It's the thing that makes this movie work. Ultimately, this goes to some incredibly upsetting places, but it's fairly accessible too. While I wouldn't classify this as a Western, or even really like a mid-century Western, I do think fans of classic Westerns will find a lot to enjoy here, and not just because Kevin Costner's in it, but I think Kevin Costner's in it because Western fans would enjoy it. Now, speaking of Kevin Costner, his counterpart in Yellowstone, played by Kelly Riley, is in one of the most intense horror movies of its kind, titled Eden Lake, and it happens to be my next pick. Now, this movie also stars Michael Fassbender and Jack O'Connell before he was really kind of a name and showing up in other movies. And it's got a very simple setup. A young couple go on a camping trip out in the woods where they get confronted by some really unruly teenagers. And unruly is not really the proper word. I mean, they become vicious criminals. The stuff they do to these people is horrendous. This is an incredibly upsetting horror movie where you've basically got a woman on the run for almost the entirety of the movie. You know, once things kick off, they really do not stop. This movie will take your breath away. It's edge-of-your-seat stuff, even though it does have its fair amount of gore in it as well. This one never really leaves the ground. It stays fairly grounded the whole time. Again, in this genre, where people are just running through the woods being from murderers, again, there's a lot of movies like that. Eden Lake basically nails it. At the top of the video, I mentioned the movie Otherlife. It's one of the lesser known movies on this list, most likely. And it's actually a science fiction movie from Australia with a small budget, but a huge concept.
If he's in there, then all he needs is a way out.
This one revolves around the creation of a new drug that actually creates time-compressed virtual reality experiences. That means you drop this drug into your eyeballs and within a few seconds you experience like another life. So the concept is great, but the movie makes incredible use of it with little to no money. I mean, the movie's got a budget, but there's no big special effects or anything in this movie. Everything stays, again, fairly grounded, and again, they exploit this concept in a terrifying way. Now, the movie itself is very accessible. I'm not going to scare people off of this one. But when you think about just the implications of what could be done with this technology, the way that they present it to you, it's mind-blowing. My next one is about a child predator. So right off the bat, it's an intense one, but this one is upsetting in its concept and in its execution. I'm talking about the cult classic Hard Candy. Now, in this movie, a young woman meets up with a photographer at a cafe. Clearly they've been chatting online before this meeting and they go back to his place. So again, right off the bat, it's very upsetting stuff, but this little girl's got a trick up her sleeve. Not only is she not exactly a little girl, she knows who he is and what he's up to. Now, while that may sound like a major spoiler, that is all information that they give to you in the trailers and probably even the poster for this movie. That's the initial twist, and it's a great one. He never sees it coming. And you've still got a lot of movie left after that twist is revealed, and there's more to come afterwards. But, like I said, very twisted setup, and it's just stomach-turning from beginning all the way to the end. Now, I've got another movie that's just very stomach-turning, but it's also award-winning. But before we get to the award winner, I want to talk about MacGruber.
You did not just do that. That is a plot point! You owe me a plot point!
Now, I think this is an incredibly underrated comedy movie. It was made for fairly little money. They didn't market it a whole lot. It's based on an old SNL sketch that Will Forte created. It's like a MacGyver type character, except it's a lot more than that. This too has kind of a Fairly Brothers level of comedy, but I think it's funnier. It's certainly raunchier, but it's also really funny for people who love action movies. Kind of like Team America. I'm not going to say all the humor, not even half of it has to do with action movies, but a lot of it does, and it's just lots of fun. Now, these movies will not stay on Prime Video forever, so if you like the idea of never running out of good movies to watch, definitely click that subscribe button, maybe even the bell icon if you want to get notified when these videos release, so you don't miss the movies before they're gone. But that other award-winning stomach-turning movie is actually a classic now. It's Charlize Theron in Monster. Now, if you never saw this movie because you thought it wasn't for you, I can tell you it is an excellent movie about a serial killer. And I love Charlize Theron's performance in this movie. Like, she's amazing. She embodies this other person, yet you can still see that it's her, yet the makeup is very convincing as well. Like, it's a beautiful balance that they scored with this movie. But it's got a lot of scenes in it that are eyebrow-raising, to say the least. Yet all of this stuff happened, and the presentation, again, is really well balanced. I mean, she's the main character, so you're along for the ride with her, and you understand why she's doing what she's doing, even if you don't agree with it. You understand it because of the way they made the movie. I'll say Christina Ricci's also great in this movie, and Christina Ricci, one of my favorite movies of her, did make the #1 spot on this list. We'll get to it in just a moment. Now, I've got another little movie that's technically an action movie, but it's got a lot more going for it, which is why it made this list. But I will say, my next pick will definitely appeal to Guy Ritchie fans with Avengement.
You must be a tough guy then, yeah? Chasing that bloke away all by yourself. It's funny that. You don't look like a tough guy to me.
Well, what's a f***ing tough guy look like then?
Well, they look like me, don't they? You know, handsome, well-aged.
Now, this is a Scott Adkins action flick. Scott Adkins is a total badass. He's been like a stunt guy, fight choreographer in movies for, I think, decades now. He played Killa most recently in John Wick 4. And he puts out multiple movies like Avengement every single year. Avengement just happens to be like my favorite one that he's ever done. In this movie, he plays kind of a regular guy who gets thrown in the slammer and turned into a hardened criminal. A hardened rusty nail, as he puts it in the movie. And what's so great about it is you get a lot of fight choreography, a lot of John Wick style fighting in Avengement, but you also get this English gangster movie with a lot of fantastic banter like a Guy Ritchie movie. I mean, it is almost as if the movie Snatch and John Wick somehow had a baby and had Avengement. And my favorite director of all time comes in at #3 on this list with one of the strangest comedies he ever directed. It's titled After Hours.
Would you just give me a break? I really just want to go home.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. I could lose my job.
Well, who would know exactly?
I could go to a party, get drunk, talk to someone, who knows?
Martin Scorsese made this movie at a time where he wasn't sure he even wanted to make movies anymore. I believe it was following all the negative reception of The Last Temptation of Christ, and he ended up doing something kind of fun. In fact, this movie was supposed to be Tim Burton's first feature film, and Scorsese effectively stole it from him. And when you watch the movie, you can kind of see why. It's got a little bit of a Tim Burton vibe, a little bit. But the story here is a simple one of a man out on a night in New York City, and he has an incredibly complicated time. He's literally just going out, maybe trying to meet a woman. Unfortunately, he runs into Rosanna Arquette, who puts him on a chain reaction of events that are hilarious to watch unfold. The movie's clever, it's surprising, you never know where it's about to go, and it's exciting. In fact, the movie's so chaotic and so crazy, I'm not sure it would have made any sense if you didn't have a particularly skilled director crafting this thing. But speaking of skilled directors, next up we've got one of my favorite directors pumping out movies today, S. Craig Zahler's third feature film, Dragged Across Concrete.
There's something on your boot.
Yeah, I noticed.
Before this, he did Brawl in Cell Block 99, and before that, he did Bone Tomahawk. If you like either one of those movies, you need to check out Dragged Across Concrete, even though it's definitely his slowest movie. That does not mean it's not interesting. Even the slow, long scenes of dialogue, there's one with Don Johnson in particular, it's all good stuff. And it has a fair amount to say about police work in today's world, or at least in America today. And has a little bit of a Quentin Tarantino vibe, but not as fanciful or colorful as Quentin Tarantino. It feels more grounded and more like it's in our reality, yet there's a little bit of a liveliness and color to it that's just, as Craig Zahler's got a voice, it comes through in his work, and I think it comes through strongest in Dragged Across Concrete, even though I think I do enjoy his previous two films better. But my #1 pick is one of my all-time favorite little gems to recommend, and has been for a really long time. Buffalo 66. Now, this is widely regarded a masterpiece. It was written and directed by Vincent Gallo. He also plays the main character. He plays a man recently released from prison. In fact, the opening shot of the movie is of him walking out of jail. And the movie takes place basically over the first day or two that he's back out in society. And he ends up having to confront some of the stuff that put him there in the first place while simultaneously kidnapping Christina Ricci. So that's kind of how the movie starts. He kidnaps her in order to bring her home as his girlfriend so he can kind of show off to his parents so they won't know that he was in jail. And everything that follows is just beautiful scene after scene. Some of it is incredibly upsetting. Angelica Houston plays his mother. She's particularly maddening in the movie in just a really brilliant way. And it's a movie that I think successfully wrestles with a lot of inner turmoil and ultimately goes somewhere. Like, this movie doesn't really feel like it's headed anywhere good story-wise. In fact, it feels like it's careening towards chaos, and it ultimately will surprise you multiple times. This is a strong recommendation, again, for people who love little indie art films and like discovering new flavors. There's so much to enjoy with Buffalo 66, but it's very old-fashioned feeling, and it's not one I strongly recommend for people who are just wanting to be entertained. But again, if you're wanting to discover something new that might change the way you look at movies, Buffalo 66 was one of those movies for me. But that is the list. Don't forget to check out the Helix Sleep link down in that video description if you're interested in getting that free trial for the mattress. But I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Prime Video episode, and you will see me on the next one.